Alright, so I've been having a ton of fun making Elder Scrolls related content, so I figured what we would do today is rank all of the factions in Skyrim from worst to best. Now the criteria for these rankings will be a combination of things. Number one, how cool they are. Number two, how fun the questline itself is, if there's one related to them in Skyrim. And number three, just kind of how awesome it would be to be in said faction, the history behind them, things of that nature. So we're going to go down the line and rank these from worst to best. If you guys want to see more content like this, just let me know. I know some people are wary of the tier maker stuff because it's kind of just easy content, but I like talking about stuff that involves the Elder Scrolls, and this is a good way to talk about a bunch of random things that have to do with the Elder Scrolls franchise. So, starting off down here, you have the Bards College. Now, the Bards College, obviously, is where people go in solitude to learn how to be a bard. So all the bards that you see in the taverns scattered across Skyrim, singing the songs of old, all probably got their training at the Bards College. Now, in the original Bards College questline in Solitude, there was really not much to it. It wasn't a very good questline, and you didn't even really get to play music or anything. But I believe they released, in the Creation Club, they released a paid DLC that was a complete overhaul of the Bards College questline and made it an actual questline where I believe you get to play music and write poems and things of that nature, and there's a whole questline involved to it. And I think being a bard is cool, especially when it comes to Skyrim itself, because, you know, telling the stories of legends of Skyrim, they do that, a lot of that through writing books and singing songs. So I think the Bards College is pretty cool. The original, quest line in Skyrim wasn't all that good, but they added a new one that I still need to play. So I'm going to put the Bards College right around the middle for the B tier. Now next we have the Blades, which are the ancient order that was designed to protect the Emperor of Tamriel, to protect, to worship the Dragonborn. Maybe not worship the Dragonborn, but, the Dragonborn typically was the leader of the Blades. And I think they're really cool. I like their samurai-style armor and their, Akaviri katanas. They use that Akaviri influence in the way that they build their temples and the way that they, make their weapons and armor. And I think just historically, the Blades are really cool. Obviously, once Skyrim rolls around, their order is pretty much completely dead. The last remnants of it pretty much disappeared after the Oblivion Crisis. But I think the Blades are still really cool, and I think it's awesome that you get to kind of resurrect the Order in a way. Now, obviously, they try to get you to kill Paarthurnax at the end, and that's, this big thing. But I think as a whole, the Blades are really sick. I'm going to throw them an A. Next up, we've got the greybeards, the ancient worshippers of the Thu'um. I'm 90% sure that the greybeards were involved with the old dragon clans in the early days of Skyrim, led by the dragon priests, and who utilized the dragons to kind of sow terror across all of Skyrim. And honestly, the Greybeards are probably one of my least favorite factions in all of Skyrim. I think they are very dogmatic. I think they're very stuck in their ways. They remind me a lot of the Jedi from Star Wars, where they just have this certain set of rules that holds them back, except they're probably worse than the Jedi in a lot of ways, because they refuse to get involved with anything involving, the real world, and they just sit up in their mountain. And, some NPCs in Skyrim literally say that they are just old men sitting up on a mountain screaming at the clouds. And that's pretty much how I feel about them. They get really mad at you for a lot of stuff that you do in the main quest line of Skyrim. So honestly, I do not rock with the Greybeards. I'm going to throw them down in D tier. I think they're one of the worst factions in Skyrim. Next up, you got the College of Winterhold, which is basically the Hogwarts of the Elder Scrolls, or at least the Hogwarts of Skyrim. And I honestly, a lot of people don't love the College of Winterhold questline. I personally love it. I don't usually play mage characters, but the ones that I have done, I've done the College of Winterhold questline. I've had a lot of fun with it. I think it's really cool. I think it's cool to get to go to Sarthal, which I believe is the first city that Ysgramor settled when he brought his people from the north to Skyrim. They settled in Sarthal. I'm pretty sure that's where Ysgramor Isgramor was when the Night of Tears took place, when they went out and slaughtered all the snow elves. My Elder Scrolls lore is a little bit rusty, so I could be misinforming you on some of that. But, you know, you get to go there, you get to see some really cool stuff, you get to interact with the Psijic Order, you get to eventually, obviously, become the Archmage of the College of Winterhold, and I just think the idea of a college, you know, this giant castle-looking college where you can study magic just gives me Harry Potter vibes, and I love Harry Potter, so the College of Winterhold's going in A tier for me. Next up, you've got the Companions, which once again are directly tied to the Nordic legend Isgramor. And I think that they're pretty cool too, especially their secret of all of them being werewolves. But essentially, by the time Skyrim rolls around, the Companions are just mercenaries who get hired to go out and take care of, you know, bandits and all kinds of other things. They just get hired to do various odd jobs around Skyrim. But historically, you know, they're really cool. And in the questline in Skyrim, you know, you get to gather pieces of Isgramor's, you know, battle axe, and I think that's really cool. It's a really cool reward once you finish the Companions questline to have the battle axe, so I think that's pretty sick. So, I don't know, I think the Companions historically are pretty cool. I don't love the questline in Skyrim, but I think that they're decent enough, and I'm going to put the Companions in the B tier. Next up, you have the Coven of Namira, which is a group of cult followers who are dedicated to worshiping the Daedric Prince Namira, and they're cannibals, I'm pretty sure. And actually, strangely enough, like, I'd say years ago in my Skyrim playthrough, I did this part, but in the subsequent, you know, 20 times I've played Skyrim since, I don't think I've done this questline. So this is like the first one where I don't really know that much about it. I've done the questline before, but I don't remember that much. You know, obviously I've had playthroughs where I go through and gather every Daedric artifact, do every Daedric questline, but I don't really remember this one all that much. So the fact that they're cannibals is kind of nasty, so I guess I'm just going to throw them in C because I don't know anything about them really off the top of my head, so might as well just put them in C. Next up, we've got House Telvanni, which is present in Skyrim in the Dragonborn DLC. And once again, something that I am not super knowledgeable about. Obviously, the Dark Elf Neloth, I believe, is the one who runs House Telvanni by the time we get there in Solstheim. And again, I don't really know that much about them, but I love mushrooms, and their buildings are made out of mushrooms. So just based off that alone, I'm throwing House Telvanni in B tier. I've really got to brush up on my Morrowind-related lore, because I know a lot of the lore around Skyrim, and I'm learning a lot of the lore around Oblivion right now, but Morrowind I'm extremely rusty on and don't really know enough about it. Next up, we have the Dark Brotherhood, which is the group of assassins that take place in Skyrim, and kind of like some of the other groups like the Companions, but even maybe more so, the Dark Brotherhood is not nearly as prominent in Skyrim at the time of the game as they were, say, in the past or even in Oblivion. You know, they're kind of just a ragtag group of assassins who are trying to carry on the tradition of the Dark Brotherhood, but it's really not working out that well until they get this giant contract to assassinate the Emperor. So I think the Dark Brotherhood questline is arguably the best questline in all of Skyrim. That may be a hot take, but I know a lot of people do love it. So I don't know. I'm going to end up putting the Dark Brotherhood, I think, in S tier. I think that a group of assassins is a really cool idea. You know, carrying out assassination contracts, using the ritual that they use, and then the quest line is incredible, and you get a lot of money from it and a lot of cool gear. So I'm going to put the Dark Brotherhood in S tier. Next up, we've got the Imperial Legion. And when I was younger, I was definitely more of a Stormcloak person, but as I've gotten older, especially on my most recent playthrough where I played I tried to make like a legendary Imperial warrior from Cyrodiil who was very loyal to the Empire. And while I was, obviously playing out the scenario of that character in my head, I kind of did some more research on the Empire, and it's not even really their fault, all this stuff that's happening. They got in a war, they lost the war to the Aldmeri Dominion, they signed a pact that they felt like they had to sign in order to, keep everyone safe and in order to keep the Thalmor from taking over. Like, literally, if they hadn't signed the White Gold Concordat, the Empire would have been gone. They would have been decimated, and the Thalmor and the Aldmeri Dominion would have literally taken over all of Tamriel. So the White Gold Concordat definitely wasn't the best thing ever, but it was, the only way to save the Empire and to save, Tamriel from being conquered completely by the Aldmeri Dominion. So I think they did what they had to do. Obviously, they're a giant imperial, honestly, borderline tyrannical government. So I understand, why people don't like them. And obviously, the Nords of Skyrim kind of got the short end of the stick when it comes to the Imperial Legion and when it comes to the White Gold Concordat, because, it banned the worship of Talos, which is, the Nords' primary god was Talos, and so the worship of Talos was banned. So I understand why, like, Nords and Stormcloaks sympathizers hate the Empire, because they feel like they were weak and they gave up and it ended up being really bad. But I don't really blame the Empire, and I think the Empire is still a better alternative to the Thalmor, and honestly probably a better alternative to the Stormcloaks. So I'm going to throw them in B tier. They're not great, but I think that's the lesser of the two evils, if that makes sense. I'm just going to go ahead and move to the Stormcloaks here. I think the Stormcloaks at face value have a honorable mission. It makes sense why they're rebelling against the Empire. Everything that they stand for is being, basically mocked, and no one asked the Nords permission to sign the White Gold Concordat, knowing that it was going to, impact them negatively. So I understand where the rebellion stems from, but honestly, I think that they're kind of dumb. Like, if the Stormcloaks had teamed up with the Imperial Legion, maybe they would have been able to make another run at the Thalmor. I'm pretty sure they all fought together in the original Great War when they lost to the Aldmeri Dominion. But if they'd have just, chilled out and tried to team back up with the Legion, and maybe tried to fight another war later on, maybe things would have gone differently for them. But I think canonically, like, if we're really being realistic, I don't think the Stormcloak Rebellion could have won the Civil War. Obviously, they're fighting for their land, and they have a little bit more in their hearts when it comes to the war. But I don't know. When I was a kid, I didn't really recognize the pure racism, which, it is. It's like, I know people want to scoff and roll their eyes at that, like when you call Stormcloaks racist, but literally the first thing you see when you walk into Windhelm, which is the home of the Stormcloaks, the first thing you see is a couple of Nords being extremely racist to a dark elf that lives there. And, they don't let the Argonians live inside the city, and there's all this, they're very much, the Skyrim belongs to the Nords. We don't want anyone else here. They obviously hate elves because of what happened with the snow elves, and they obviously hate the Altmer, the high elves. So it makes sense why they hate some elves, but like other people, get the short end of the stick because of that. So I don't know. I just don't really rock with the Stormcloaks anymore now that I'm a little bit older, but I also respect their mission to a certain extent, so I'm going to put them in C tier. They probably don't even belong with the Coven of Namira, because I don't know anything about the Coven of Namira. So I guess because the Coven of Namira, because I don't know anything about them, and because they are cannibals, I'll throw them in D tier, because the Stormcloaks, I think are a little bit more respectable than a Coven of Daedric worshipping cannibals. Anyway, moving on, we have the Nightingales, and I wish I was a little bit more brushed up on my Nightingale lore. I understand the gist of it. I know that they worship the Daedric Prince Nocturnal, and she is who the Nightingales are dedicated to. I think the Nightingale armor is some of the coolest armor in all of Skyrim, and obviously, the Thieves Guild, like the leaders of the Thieves Guild, are secretly Nightingales. And you can join them by the end of it. So I think the Nightingales are pretty cool, but obviously not being super knowledgeable about them, I'm just going to throw them in the B tier because I think that they're sick. But yeah, other than that, don't know that much about them. Next up, we've got the Thieves Guild, and growing up, I think other than the Dark Brotherhood, the Thieves Guild was my favorite quest line in the game. I just think it's really well done, and even though I never really cared for the thievery itself, like I don't really like sneaking around and stealing stuff, I think that the quest line was so well written and so compelling, and there was all these betrayals and all this stuff going on, that I honestly ended up really liking it. So the Thieves Guild it's a really cool premise, this just grimy group of thieves who go around stealing and completing contracts as well and doing all this crazy stuff. but also because the quest line was so good, I'm going to throw the Thieves Guild in the A tier. Next, we've got the tribal orcs, and another part of Skyrim that, despite having thousands of hours in it, I never really fully explored them. You know, obviously you'll come across them every now and then, and they will, you know, most of the time they'll just call you an outlander and they won't like you, but I'm pretty sure there's quests you can do to make them kind of like you a little bit more, accept you a little bit more. And then if you are an orc, I'm pretty sure you get accepted into them. But the orcish race, I never really cared much for. Like, I never really played. I mean, that sounded racist. I never really played as orcs. You know, they were never like a race I ever had any interest in playing as a player. And I don't really know that much about them. I don't know that much about Orsinium, you know, their homeland. I'm pretty sure it's like a state of Hammerfell, I'm 99% sure. Again, my Elder Scrolls lore is mildly rusty, so I could be wrong on that. But anyway, I mean, I don't really have much to say about the orcs. So I guess I'm just going to throw them in C tier. Next up, we've got the Dawnguard, and that's the legendary ancient order of vampire hunters. And again, this is another faction that kind of disappeared for a long time until Isran, you know, took this old Fort Dawnguard, built it back up, and, you know, tried to get together a giant group of vampire hunters to take down the rising number of vampires that were, you know, in Skyrim. You know, the vampire problem was becoming a real issue in Skyrim during the events of the game, and so having a faction that is literally just there to take them out, I think was pretty cool. So, I mean, Eastron was obviously a little bit rough around the edges, but, you know, personally, if I was in Skyrim, I would definitely not want vampires running around, killing people, sucking everybody's blood. They burned down the Hall of the Vigilant. You know, they were kind of reigning terror. They were attacking towns and villages, and it was getting really bad. So this was one of the few quest lines where there was no real gray area here. I think if you wanted to be evil, you went and joined the Volkihar clan. If you wanted to be good and do the right thing, you joined the Dawnguard. And I think that the Dawnguard quest line is up there as like a top 1 or 2 quest lines in the whole game. And so I'm going to put the Dawnguard in S tier. I think the idea of vampire hunters in Skyrim is a really cool premise, and I love their fort, and a lot of the characters in that DLC were really awesome from Fort Dawnguard. And so yeah, the Dawnguard are in S tier for me. And then lastly, we've got the Volkihar clan, which is the Dawnguard, pretty much. There are the ancient vampires, the vampire lords, the extremely powerful vampires, and they quite literally want to destroy the sun and take over the world. So that's why I'm saying I don't really feel like it's very, you know, it's not nuanced. Like, the Volkihar clan is evil, the Dawnguard are the good guys. That's one of the few moments in Skyrim where the good guys and the bad guys are very, very much differentiated from each other. And so I think that the vampire lords are cool. I think that their castle is sick. It's one of the coolest looking structures in the whole game. So, I mean, as much as they are evil, I also think they're really cool. And I think a couple years ago, I ended up joining the Volkihar clan, but most of the time I joined the Dawnguard. But I did end up joining the Volkihar clan, and it was pretty cool to be like a vampire lord and stuff. But I'm going to throw Volkihar clan in B just because they are just that traditional evil vampire cult, and they literally want to destroy the sun and take over the world. And I think that's kind of a cool premise for bad guys. I would say that the Volkihar clan is you know, just as much of a threat to Tamriel as the dragons were in the main quest line. I don't know if that's crazy to say, but yeah, I think the Volkihar clan is pretty cool. So at the end of the day, this is my rankings for the factions, are technically not ranked in order, I guess, but, you know, these are the tier lists. I guess I could rank them in order real quick. I'm going to go ahead and say Dark Brotherhood's number 1, Dawnguard's number 2. I'm going to throw Thieves Guild at 3, College of Winterhold at 4, and the Blades at 5. And then here in this B tier, I got to move my Empire up a little bit if I can figure out how to do that. And then I'm going to go Volkihar clan, I'm going to go the Nightingales, then the Companions, House Telvanni, and the Bards College. And then down in C tier, we've got the Stormcloaks and the Tribal Orcs. I mean, I guess I'll throw the Tribal Orcs ahead of the Stormcloaks just because I don't agree with the Stormcloaks all that much. And then I'm going to put the greybeards in last place. Like, I just can't stand the greybeards. So this is my tier list of the factions in Skyrim, and it was pretty fun to talk about each one of them. There's a couple of them I don't know enough about to really ramble on about, but I love talking about anything Elder Scrolls related. I love Elder Scrolls lore. I'm trying to learn more about it because I do want to end up making like a really long, comprehensive Elder Scrolls lore video, just going from the creation of Nirn all the way to where we were after Skyrim. Like, I think it'd be really cool to make like an hour-long video just covering all of that. So I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I'm going to give it a try. But I got to learn a lot in the meantime. So anyway, that is my factions tier list. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe for more Elder Scrolls content, and I will see y'all in the next one.